How you doing, guys? Anybody who was a pro wrestling fan, particularly going back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you realize that it got by in a very, very simple formula. The good guy, bad guy scenario where they played guys off each other. The business has changed quite a bit since then, particularly since the onset of the internet. See, back then, you could still argue whether it was real or not. Today's fans know quite a bit more than they did back then. But basically, in those days, the heels, the bad guys, were 100% bad all the time. And the baby faces, being the good guys, were always 100% good. As a matter of fact, I was talking to Mike Brook a few months ago about that. And who was it that you remembered the most? And that was the interviews from the heels. See, they had a wide range. They could pretty much do and say anything they wanted just to get the fans angry enough to get them to buy tickets to the local arenas. The interviews from the baby faces, including the champions, were relatively boring, but that's just the way it was. See, the baby faces had to be careful what they said because they were 100% good. As a matter of fact, looking at the business, there are only two businesses that the good guy, bad guy scenario is successful, and that being in the world of entertainment and the world of cults. And I'm talking about Jehovah's Witnesses. See, anybody who was a Jehovah's Witness realizes that they have separate groups of people. You have the good guys, being the JWs, who are all 100% good all the time. Then you have the worldly people, those people that are going to die from Armageddon because they wouldn't listen to their message. And of course, then you have the former Jehovah's Witnesses that are labeled mentally diseased apostates, so you might as well just throw them into the worldly people. They have an us versus them attitude. Usually it's about on average, three times a year, what'll happen at the midweek meeting. An elder will get up and make an announcement that so-and-so is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, everybody in the hall thinks the same thing. They really don't say it, but they think it. What did they do? The first thing you can think of is they must have done something immoral, which isn't the case. See, what they will do is you don't know whether they were disfellowshipped, whether they resigned from being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and one of the simplest reasons evades the mentality of the JWs, simply that they no longer believed what Watchtower is teaching. Particularly going back to 2010 with the overlapping generation, I think that rattled a lot of people loose, and I think many JWs just don't admit that. I started questioning the teachings of Watchtower from that time on, because a lot of what they were saying to me sounded like smoke blowing. As time went on, I just did not believe anything they were saying, and it was like, what is the point of being here? So I basically left. Now, they have me on record as being disfellowshipped, for the reason being I refused to go to my final judicial hearing. The way I saw it was they had no authority over me. All I had to do was leave. But they had to put something down on record. They actually wanted me to write a letter of resignation, which I refused to do. That would be admitting that they still had some sort of authority. But they delivered the letter. And time told me that I was DF because I took the letter and I dropped it in the trash unopened. So I never found out exactly what I was disfellowshipped for. But basically, they have to make excuses. So they put me in the bad guy category, which is natural. Anybody who leaves the organization for whatever reason, all of a sudden is mentally diseased. No, we just didn't believe what you were teaching. One idiot actually had to make that excuse when we got into a slight argument. I left the organization for a piece of ass. Not considering I'm not exactly in my prime anymore. Anything that I had done worth doing was done years ago, but this is their mentality. They have to make that excuse. See, when you're disfellowshipped, you probably did something immoral. If you resigned, you left the organization to do something immoral, which is kind of a childish way of thinking. But this is the narrow void that JWs live in. Either you're a good person or you're a bad person. You had to leave the organization so you could do something immoral. But let's consider all the people that are still inside doing the same thing. Why would they have to leave? But that's just their way of thinking. And this is their way of controlling so that you won't talk to your disfellowship family members or your family members that didn't want any part of the organization. It's a control mechanism. But there are many JWs inside right now not saying anything. And they're actually starting to wake up. And they're thinking, why should I let these 8 Goombas dictate how I live my life? I mean, even when Rubberhead gets on JW Broadcasting, we love you very much. Consider one thing. He's talking to a camera. He's not talking to you. Most of you JWs have never even met these 8 Goombas, and personally, they don't really give a royal rat's ass who the hell you are. But they want to keep you under control. So they continue with this good guy, bad guy scenario. And in all honesty, even the pro wrestling business has grown up and they realize that the good guy, bad guy scenario doesn't work anymore because they don't use that same formula anymore because everybody is shades of gray. And in all honesty, in the real world, that's the way it is. But Jehovah's Witnesses, you are still living in the dark ages. You haven't grown up with the times. You are believing this good guy, bad guy scenario. I got news for you, whether you agree with it or not. There are some damn good people in the world that will never be one of Jehovah's Witnesses that probably have never even heard of you, and yet you still have them labeled. If somebody doesn't want your message and you catch them on the bad day and they get irate at you, you put them on a do not call list. You label them. You label people for leaving the organization. You are the best labelers on the face of the planet. As a matter of fact, how many times I was out with a car group and I heard JWs trash talking somebody, and the funny thing was, one JW would always say, we shouldn't badmouth them. And then the conversation would continue. Wake up, Jehovah's Witnesses. You are following these 8 Goombas, allowing them to take away family memories, destroying your family. Look at your suicide rate. The suicide rate inside of your organization, as well as other cults, is much higher than it is in the general population. And let's not talk about the child abuse problem. Many of you are in a state of denial about it. And the cop-out answer I hated with a passion was, it goes on in all religions. You know, it goes on in all walks of life, but it's the piss-poor way your organization is handling it. So when you say it happens in all religions, you're actually giving the green light for it to continue. What do you do about it? Not a frigging thing. You do nothing. You turn a blind eye to it. As a matter of fact, you turn a blind eye to a lot. One of these days, your family members are not going to be around. And who's going to regret it? You are going to regret it. You are going to have so many regrets by following the policies of this organization. And for some odd reason, you still think you have a hold of people that have left. I think it was December of 2019 that 2 JWs stopped by my house. And I figured, looking back on it, they were there for one of 2 reasons. One, to feel me out, to see if my life had gone down the shitter so bad that I wanted to run back to the Kingdom Hall, or simply to confirm my address. Well, it didn't matter, because they got neither as far as information went. No, when I walk away from something, it's permanent. And as far as confirming my address, or any address of any form of Jehovah's Witnesses, we're gone. Leave us the hell alone. But as far as ever considering going back, I've walked away from a lot of things in my lifetime, and I have never backtracked. But the thought of going back to the Kingdom Hall, to me, would be like a dog returning to its own vomit. No, I would never go back. I don't believe a damn thing you people teach. Your teachings change way too much. But JWs, you are living in the dark ages. Because in the real world, the good guy, bad guy scenario does not work. And that's exactly what it is in the Kingdom Hall. And this is why you label people that are no longer in your organization. And you're allowing a corporation, a very wealthy real estate corporation, to control your thinking, to control your families, to control your every move. Just something to think about. Anyways, guys, those are my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours. I will talk to you later in the week. You guys have a good day.